Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. It's an absolute pleasure to see you at this event. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the report that we have been working on and republished today. I won't go into detail because I've only got a few minutes, but I'm going to outline some of our thinking and then invite you to really download the report and make sense of it in terms of your specific context yourself. So my name is Josef Hargrave. I'm the Global Foresight Leader at Arup. And I'll be talking to you about the scenario work we've been doing on COVID-19. And this was developed in collaboration with Filippo and his team from our Business and Investor Advisory Group. The scenarios were first developed, as Jerome has mentioned, in Q1 of this year, really with the aim of supporting our group board and our regional boards in our response to COVID-19. And we since published an open version for our clients and partners to look at also in June. And this latest version now we effectively updated, and it was completed on the 30th of October. So all data in the report is essentially accurate up to that date. And like I said, it is available on our website and will also be shared with you after this event through the follow-up email. So you will have an opportunity to look at the details of the report then. Overall, the paper and scenarios seek to explore the ongoing and potential epidemiological impact of the pandemic and, of course, the public policy response to that impact. So the scenarios essentially focus on the interactions between the epidemiological situation and the economic impact and response. And you can see here on the image now our scenario axes, which range from economic and policy implications from recession and to depression, and spread of the virus from virus contained and managed to continued spread and resurgence of that virus. So the paper does assume a global perspective with some detail on certain geographies, regions and sectors available in the report, but it does require individuals and groups to, if you like, translate these global context into specific regional variations and impacts as well. So here are our 4 scenarios at a high level, and these cover the timeline of the next 18 to 24 months. The situation has, of course, changed and evolved continuously since our Q1 investigation, although you could argue that the core principles of each scenario really still hold true. So we have the bounce back scenario, which was previously called differently, which is the best case scenario. Then we have the global depression scenario, which is the policy failure scenario, the partial recovery scenario, which is a successful adaptation, and the economic collapse scenario, which is, if you like, the worst case scenario. So here's, if you like, a more detailed overview and comparison across the 4 scenarios with wide variations and everything from cases to overall deaths. Like I said, scenario 1 was previously the short pause scenario. The best case is now a bounce back because we have already entered recession in many of our markets. So this kind of idea of a short pause and a rapid recovery has essentially been replaced. In general, the health and economic impacts will continue to be far-reaching across all scenarios, varying really depending on the epidemiological developments and policy response. In our scenarios, we've got cases to Q4. The best case is 75 million cases, which is already quite optimistic, but we did want to have an extreme scenario where perhaps developments and new treatments or vaccine come to play sooner than expected. And the worst case is really up to 1 billion cases and up to 20 million deaths. And those ranges, if you like, are informed by research from Imperial and our own assumptions based on the data that was available to us. And then other things that are in there, the availability of vaccines. Now, we did have some good news about vaccines, but vaccine development in general remains highly uncertain despite these recent good news, because the speed of delivery, the logistics, the efficacy and the uptake also of the vaccines are all examples of these critical uncertainties that have, in addition to being in general uncertain, also high regional variation. So we have to be a bit mindful that the scenario, the good news on the vaccines have to be taken with a pinch of salt, perhaps. Here's a quick overview of the high-level business impacts, and there's much more information on this featured in the report and also what it means for various aspects of business. But essentially, our analysis of plausible impacts on different sectors shows that the shape of the recovery and the impacts across these different sectors will really be affected by a whole range of factors. Now, policies around further lockdowns, of course, will play a role, the full or partial reopening of economies, timing on one or more vaccines, the speed of the delivery of these vaccines to the public, and of course, any policies in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic. So lots of uncertainties and lots of factors that play a role. And in this context, there remains significant uncertainty around how different geographies and sectors will emerge from a post-COVID world. And it's important to start tracking those impacts a bit more carefully, also at the local and regional level. A few high-level conclusions in addition to what I've said. We think that scenario 3, the partial recovery, continues to be the most likely and plausible scenario, although you could argue that the likelihood of scenario 2 has also been increasing, perhaps dampened a little bit now by the recent good news on the vaccine. The focus on scenario 3 highlights the need to track and understand the economic and epidemiological situation much more at the local and regional level, and we are working on a range of trackers for both cities and regions to better understand that data at a local level and be able to respond to that with our business and with our clients, and more on that will be shared again after the event. I think both aviation and property will be two key sectors that will continue to be affected. For the aviation industry, I think a more significant recovery, probably more feasible in 2022. For property, it really depends on what type of assets you have and how quickly you can adapt them. And the final thought is really, look, the recovery in China is looking very good, but it is, in my view, unlikely to be replicated in many other parts of the world, although some certain economies, such as the Germany and others who are key trading partners in Australia, might yield specific benefits from that recovery. So that remains to be seen how that impacts essentially downstream. What next? What can you do with this? Well, you can do a wind tunneling exercise to really look at how well your business, your project, your organizational context will fare in each of these 4 scenarios. There's a lot more information, data and insights in the report, so do please feel free to look at this on our website or download it via the email, which will be shared after the event. For any further questions about the scenario work, please do just reach out to one of us. Thank you very much. Back to Filippo.